let's get into the Word. 1 Corinthians chapter 16. We're going to be in verses 5 through 12. 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verses 5 through 12. We opened chapter 16 last week, and we talked about how Paul is transitioning now into his final thoughts. He's answered every question that's come his way. He has nailed down some theological questions and some difficulties that the Corinthians were having. If you don't have a handout, will you raise your hand up real high? Sarah's going to come to you if you need a handout. Okay. But your husband, Chad. Now, you guys are backsliding a little bit. You're like several rows behind where I'm used to, so, it's weird. And there's some people up top. Quillen, you were passing them out. How did you not have one? I don't understand. That's okay. If you need one, just wave Sarah down and she'll come get you. Anyway, Paul's he's addressed every problem. He's answered every question, and now he's getting ready to wrap up his letter to the Corinthians. And as he winds things down, he starts to give his final thoughts to the church. And as Paul regularly does in his letters, he has a few pastoral charges that he intertwines in the midst of saying goodbye to a few people, and it's kind of mingled in with some practical things. Look out for this person, and oh, by the way, I need you to do this. And so they're almost like scattered thoughts that are woven in all together. And we're going to tackle a few of those thoughts here tonight as we look at what Paul has to say. And how many planners do I have here tonight? God bless you. Life can be challenging for strict planners. And it's something that I had to learn early in marriage. Sarah is like a detailed planner. She wants to know every second of the whole thing, and how many sandwiches do we have to pack, and all of the things. And I'm like, it's an adventure. Let's just go see. It's really fun to work for me because that's how everything goes. Let's just find out, Right, Dan? You're learning that. And so early in our marriage, Sarah and I would have these conflicts because she's asking me all these questions. I don't know. It doesn't matter. We'll figure it out. And to her, it's like, no, we have to. This is the time we figure it out. We want the plan. And what's really difficult for folks who are strict planners is when things don't go according to your strict plan, sometimes you can crumble. If you are holding too tightly to a plan and you're too rigid, then when unforeseen changes come, you're not prepared to swerve or take a detour. And it can really cause you that great anxiety or that difficulty or however you would phrase that. And I've seen that in ministry. I've seen that in people's lives. But sometimes as we're making our plans, in fact, I would say oftentimes as we're making our plans, the Lord will take us on a few holy detours, as I like to call them. A few challenges or disruptions will come our way. In fact, I think that it is almost inevitable that those holy detours come our way. Now, I was thinking today about some of these detours that I've had to take and some plans that I've had, and just the amazing opportunities that I've seen come about as I've followed the Lord in His detours that He puts in my way. Just a few years ago, we were early on in my ministry here, we wanted to bring bagels to all the teachers at the beginning of the school year. And so we would take bagels to every school in Rolla, and it was just dozens and dozens and dozens of bagels in every school. We did that for a couple of years. And so I'd always order the bagels from Panera, and it was always a disaster. And, one year, the last year we did it actually, I had the order. I ordered it in several months in advance. I was prepared. I had my plans, and I nailed down all the right types of bagels, the right quantities. I had it, separate orders for each school, so they'd be bagged up just right. And we'd go to pick it up, and they weren't ready. And then when they did finally get them to us, we were late, and all the bagels were wrong, and all the orders, it was the whole thing was all messed up, and I was so angry. I did my very best to make it go right. And so we fixed it all. We got them all delivered, and I had to go back up to Panera to get it right. And I'm working with the manager, and I had built this relationship with the manager. by this time because I'd been going there a lot. And so I was talking to him and nailing down all the things that went wrong. And, he was working with me at the beginning just to get the bagels out the door. And so I spent quite a bit of time with him that morning just figuring everything out and smoothing it all out. And as we're working our way through that, we get to talking about church. And I invite him to church, and, I actually prayed with him before that conversation was over. And what was really cool is eventually he lost his job there. And when he lost his job there, he started coming to church here with his wife and his kids. And I got a few opportunities to minister to him and to pray with him and to walk him through some difficulty. And I wouldn't have had that special relationship with him if I hadn't had to work through a great difficulty and frustration that came into my life, spur of the moment. And I was thinking about that, and I said, you know what? That was a holy detour. If everything had gone smooth, I never would have gone back up to talk to him. And that happens in our life probably far more than you and I will ever truly recognize. That we have these plans, we have everything figured out, and all the details nailed down, and when things don't go our way, depending on how we respond to them, I think we can experience great open doors of ministry as we work out these various problems and detours that come in the midst of our plans. And we're going to see with Paul here several things for us that are going to be a challenge for us tonight. And so for us as followers of Christ, I just want us to have our eyes open and our minds open tonight for whatever the Lord has to challenge us in, because there's various things that we will encounter that we usually don't like and that are uncomfortable for us as we follow the Lord. As we make our plans, Proverbs says the Lord establishes our steps. And that means the Lord really is in control and he's guiding us. And that can come with great frustration at times. And so I want to challenge that in us tonight. Start with me, if you would, in verse 5, 1 Corinthians 16, verse 5. Here's what Paul has to say as his closing remarks here, winding things down. He says, I will visit you after passing through Macedonia, for I intend to pass through Macedonia, and perhaps I will stay with you or even spend the winter, so that you may help me on my journey, wherever I go. For I do not want to see you now just in passing. I hope to spend some time with you if the Lord permits. Now notice that phrase there, if the Lord permits. But I will stay in Ephesus until Pentecost, for a wide door for effective work has opened to me, and there are many adversaries. When Timothy comes, see that you put him at ease among you, for he is doing the work of the Lord as I am. So let no one despise him. Help him on his way in peace, that he may return to me, for I am expecting him with the brothers. Now concerning our brother Apollos, I strongly urged him to visit you with the other brothers, but it is not at all his will to come now. He will come when he has the opportunity. I want to stop there tonight. So here, you might read through that, and in your personal devotions or Bible reading, you might just skim right through that and say, okay, Paul's just working through a few things here that I don't even know what the point of this is. But as you study this passage and as you really allow the Lord to press it in on your heart, rather quickly, several things are going to rise to the surface of this passage that I think will be a great challenge to you in your personal walk with the Lord. As you make your plans, as you pursue Jesus, and as you carry out the work of the Lord that he has called you to, there's a few things that we need to keep in mind. First, as you look at the first paragraph, as you carry out the work of the Lord, you need to remember that sometimes plans change. Sometimes plans change for the work of the Lord. And so Paul is bringing his letter to a close. One of the things you'll notice is that his tone and the content of his message, they change. He's worked through these difficult corrections he's needed to make, and he takes on a friendlier tone and a more gentle approach to his closing remarks. And he wants to let the church know what his plans are, that he plans to come visit them again soon. But As we see in our own lives, plans are subject to change when you follow the Lord. And I love to see Paul's verbiage here. And I want to call your attention again to verse 5. Look how he starts. He says, with great confidence, I will visit you. I will. I will visit you after passing through Macedonia. You see, it's good for us to have plans. And maybe that's not the point Paul's making here, but Paul does have great plans. And what I want to encourage you in, and Proverbs says this, Proverbs reiterates this, and so does Jesus in Luke. He says that before you build, you need to count the cost. You need to have plans. So we're not running off half-cocked. We're working diligently to plan and prepare for the future that the Lord has for us and the work that he's given us. I think it is a godly virtue to be very studious in the work of the Lord, to plan and to do all the preparation that you can on your end, but then to entrust that to the Lord and allow him to do so many things that you never could prepare for. And you see that with Paul. Paul's saying, I have a plan. I'm going to come visit you. And he says, I will. But then you'll notice his verbiage changes. And immediately after saying, I will visit you, he says, for I intend to go through Macedonia. So now already he's saying, so I will come visit you after I pass through Macedonia, because I'm planning to go. So now he's loosening up a little bit. I intend to go. And he says, right after that, I hope. You'll see that there in verse 6. I'm sorry, in verse 7. It says, I hope to spend some time with you. So he goes from I will to I intend to I hope. Then we ultimately see in verse 7, this is the key, if the Lord permits. So what is Paul doing here? He has his plans. He knows exactly what he would like to achieve. He's mapped it out. He's got his map out. He's plotted his course. He has his itinerary all mapped out. And those of you who have detailed itineraries on all of your plans, again, God bless you. You are awesome. The world needs people like you. But we have to also have that balanced with the next statement that Paul makes, if the Lord permits. Yes, here are my plans. Yes, here's my itinerary. Yes, I've worked diligently, but it's all if the Lord permits. So it is essential for us to keep in mind that God is in charge of the process. We plan, we prepare for the work the Lord has called us to, and then we entrust that to the Lord because he's the one that's in charge of the process, not us. Our plans are not in charge. You are not in charge. The Lord is. So we submit our plans to the Lord's process, and when we do, we will accomplish things far beyond our own power. Because when we make plans, when we prepare and we submit that to the Lord, then he will accomplish things in his power, which is far, far beyond anything we could ever accomplish in our own power. The Lord opens doors that we don't even know exist. And Paul says he's planning to stay in Macedonia. Why? Because this open door of ministry has opened up. And there's so many times in life that you're going to strike out in a direction because you feel the Lord calling you that way, and you're going to start heading your life that direction. And then all of a sudden, as you're going, feeling like you're doing exactly what the Lord wants you to do, there's this great detour, and the Lord says, you've been faithful here. Now I want you to take a turn and start going this direction. And he's going to call you to faithfulness in that direction as he opens up new doors of ministry that you never thought the Lord was going to open. And he calls for that same planning, that same preparation, and that same faithfulness. My friends, you can never fully map out everything the Lord is going to call you to do in your life. You can't. You need to be faithful in what the Lord is calling you to do right now, planning and preparing and being diligent in everything. Not longing for something greater, not fixing your eyes on something you perceive as more important, or whatever it might be. Be all in on the step the Lord has you in right now. And as you are faithful in that, the Lord will open new doors for you to carry out, to walk through and to carry out his work in as you go. He opens doors that we don't even know exist right now. I've said this before, but I never thought I would be the pastor of First Assembly of God in Rolla. Like, that was nowhere in my mind. I used to go to church here like 12 years ago. I never thought I was going to be the pastor of this church. Never. And look at where we are. Who knows what the Lord has for all of us as we pursue everything he has for us? Who knows where the Lord will take us? We must be faithful and diligent and work tirelessly to be prepared for anything the Lord has for us. You just don't know. Continue on. Sometimes plans change for the work of the Lord. And if you hold too tightly to the plans that you make, then it's going to be very, very difficult to walk through a new open door when the Lord is calling you into it. If you're holding tightly to your plans like this instead of like this, you're making your plans the Lord instead of submitting your plans to the Lord. It's open hands, whatever your will be, Lord. Sometimes, oftentimes, plans change. Second thing I want to point out to you tonight as we look at verses 10 and 11 is that sometimes people don't like you for the work of the Lord. Sometimes plans change, and sometimes people don't like you, and it's for the work of the Lord. I want to encourage you in that. As you're carrying out the work of the Lord and you're faithful and studious and diligent in it, sometimes people don't like you, and it's because you're faithful and studious in the work of the Lord. What does Paul say here when he talks about this open door of work? In verse 9, it says there's a great door, but there are many adversaries. He knows already that there are people diligently opposed to the work of the Lord where he's going in Ephesus. He's still going to go. Those people do not like him because he's carrying out the work of the Lord. He knows they already don't like him. And so Paul is preparing for these people he would call adversaries. These are people who are trying to stand against the work of the Lord, prevent the work of the Lord. And he's preparing to send Timothy with this letter. So we know that Paul is writing this letter to the Corinthians. He's sending the letter back with Timothy. He's sending Timothy in his stead with another group, probably a group of leaders from the church in Corinth who brought a letter of questions and things to Paul. So there's this group of leaders that Paul is sending back now with his answers, and Timothy is among them. So he's telling the congregation, now get ready for Timothy. He's going to come. And he says, this was really interesting to me. If you look in verse 11, he says, don't let anyone despise him. Don't let anyone despise him. Why would he say that? Because he knows that when you carry out the work of the Lord, people sometimes don't like it. And he's sending Timothy as a pastor, and as he's sending Timothy back to this congregation that needs correction, he also knows that the letter he's sending has many harsh corrections that Paul is making to this church. And Timothy is Paul's representative. And so here Timothy comes, letter in hand, saying, here you go, guys. This is what Paul has to say. And it would be very easy for that congregation to get mad at Timothy for the things that Paul has to say to them, because they're receiving correction. And sometimes when you bring proper godly correction into people's lives, they don't receive it well. And while it's the right thing to do and it's a loving thing to do, sometimes they go through a season where they're upset at you. And sometimes people look at you as an enemy because you bring correction into their lives. See, with ministry opportunities come many opponents. You see that again in verse 9. We shouldn't be surprised when people cause problems in the work of the Lord. We shouldn't be surprised by that. We shouldn't be surprised when there's conflict between people as we carry out the work of the Lord. And as you move up in ministry responsibilities, as you take on new areas of ministry and you're teaching small groups or Sunday schools, or you're leading a ministry in the church or in the community or at school or whatever it might be, just don't be surprised when you have to get involved in settling down a conflict between a few people. I'm blown away how often we're surprised that When you get more than one person in a room, there's conflict. It happens all the time. And so Paul's aware of this. He knows he's going to have adversaries, and he knows Timothy's going to have adversaries when he gets there. Corinth is a tough church, and Timothy is going to be bringing pastoral correction. And we see that with loving correction sometimes come lasting challengers. I think about Apollos here. Now, some of this, there's a little reading between the lines here, but we know a few things about Apollos. Paul says that he planted, when he's talking about Corinth, the work in Corinth, Paul says he planted and Apollos watered. So Apollos followed him in ministry in the church in Corinth at some point. And now we see here, and I think this is really telling, this is very revealing to me, Apollos wants nothing to do with Corinth. You notice that? So I tried to get Apollos to come back and see you guys, but it is not at all his will to do so, Paul says. It is not at all his will. And depending on what translation you read, it's basically like, he has no desire to come and talk to you. Apollos is hurt. And I have to wonder if this is where we're maybe reading between the lines a little bit, but I don't think it's a stretch at all to assume that Apollos was bringing pastoral correction and discipleship to these people who are ornery and a little chaotic, and they ran him out of town. And now the church is in chaos, and Paul's having to clean up the mess, and he's sending Timothy back with a bunch of elders to get everybody straightened out. And Paul knows that there's going to be people who are very, very angry. And when we bring loving correction, sometimes we experience lasting challengers. The church I pastored in Union, one of the things we had to do early on, because we were replanting that church, is a lot like what we're doing in Bell right now. I got to Union, and one of the things we had to do right away was we had to overhaul the worship and change, all the songs and just update everything. And there's this older guy in the congregation that just gave me fits every week. And he met me in my office and was very, very insulting to me and very rude and very condescending. And then he challenged me in front of the whole congregation one Sunday before church, and essentially cursed at me in front of everybody, and it was really, really frustrating, right as I'm getting ready to get up there and preach, and I will not tell you what he had to say, because it wasn't nice, and all because he wasn't hearing the song that he wanted. He was just angry. And as I worked hard, this is a guy over 2 times my age, I'm coming as a brand new pastor, and I had to correct him. I was like, you can't do this, this is not how this works. Got mad, left the church, and loudly, and just caused problems for me. And I run into this guy actually on a regular basis. He's in him and his family are in a friend circle with me, and so a lot of the things when I go back home to Washington, he's at a lot of these things. And it's been almost 8 years, and every time I see him, he gives me a hard time. Every time I see him, I know exactly what he's going to say to me. And he's going to walk up to me, and he's going to make the same rude comment, and it's the same way every time. It's been 8 years. I don't even pastor that church anymore. He doesn't even go to that church anymore. We shouldn't be surprised, is what I'm saying. Paul wasn't surprised. We shouldn't be surprised. People don't like to be corrected. We shouldn't be that way ourselves. You can control how you act, but you can't control how other people act all the time. But my friends, we shouldn't be caught off guard. We should be prepared for that. It's part and parcel in carrying out the work of the Lord. Here's what I have to say to you, worship team, if you want to get ready tonight. I want to remind you what chapter 15, verse 58 says. At the end of that chapter, I think Paul says something that's so important for us that has just been really, really encouraging to me personally. But Paul says, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, be immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labor is not in vain. I want to encourage you all tonight, as we learn a few things from Paul, as you carry out the work of the Lord in your own life. The plans that you have right now are going to change. The Lord is going to take you into ministries and into relationships and into caring for people that you can't even imagine yourself doing right now. The Lord, as you continue to follow Him, He will take you to places that you can't even dream in a good way. You can't even imagine all the great things the Lord has for you. Hold your plans open. Work hard. Be diligent. Don't use this as an excuse to just fly by the seat of your pants. Work diligently, but hold your plans with open hands. And follow the Lord through the open doors that He has for you. And as you do, you will wind up experiencing the most miraculous things in your life, more miracles than you can ever dream of. Follow the Lord. Some of you might be wrestling with that right now. Your life hasn't gone the way you've wanted it to. You feel like it's a negative thing. Things aren't mounting up the way that you want. You're not accomplishing the things you had hoped to accomplish. You're not doing the ministry that you had your sights set on or in your dreams or whatever it might be, and you feel like you're just spinning your wheels. And I just want to encourage you tonight, this scripture ought to encourage you. Be diligent. Be faithful. Stand strong, abounding in the work of the Lord, and follow Him through the open doors He opens. Don't wrench open doors that you want open. Follow the Lord. Give your plans to Him. Submit your plans to Jesus. See, here's what we need to learn also as we deal with conflicts. People aren't in the way of your ministry. People are your ministry. We think, I've heard pastors even say this, boy, without people, ministry would be so fun. I don't think that. You guys know that's not true. But I think sometimes in the back of our mind, we can make excuses for why things aren't going the way we want or whatever it might be, and we're frustrated by conflicts and just people stuff. And I just want to remind you that people aren't keeping you from your ministry. They are your ministry. Care for the people the Lord has for you right now. Love them. Care for them. Care for your family. Care for your coworkers. Don't spend all of your time daydreaming about other things. God's got people in your life right now. Care for them. Adversaries shouldn't surprise us. They should be anticipated. I just want to remind you about that. Last thing I want to say to you, conflicts, difficulties, adversaries, they will come and go. But the work of the Lord lasts an eternity. Focus your attention on the work of the Lord. All that other stuff will come and go. Has its peaks, has its valleys, but the work of the Lord lasts forever. Set your eyes on what Jesus has called you to do right now, and do it.